So let's start with what might be the most uncomfortable question in modern business.
Okay.
It comes straight from the source material we've been digging into for today. If your business just stopped existing tomorrow, would your customers feel a genuine, like a visceral loss?
Or would they just move on?
Or would they simply switch to a competitor without a second thought?
That question right there, that determines whether your business is a commodity or a conviction.
Exactly.
If you're just filling a need, selling a thing for a price, you're basically interchangeable. But if you're relational, well, that's where you create that genuine loyalty.
Absolutely. And that pivot point is what drove Debbie Millman, host of the Amazing Design Matters podcast, to compile all these insights from dozens of the world's top brand strategists in her book, Brand Thinking.
Mm.
So we've taken that whole stack of expert opinion and we've distilled it down to the four foundational principles that separate the businesses that just sell things from the ones that actually matter.
And what's so striking is how consistent the message is. I mean, it doesn't matter who the strategist is or what sector they're in. They all agree on this one thing. Winning brands are not built on superior features and benefits.
No.
They are built, fundamentally, on meaning and purpose. Customers, they're buying beliefs. They're buying identity, a sense of belonging. They're purchasing a worldview, not just a widget.
And for you listening, for the person trying to drive growth, this isn't some abstract philosophy. This has an immediate, tangible payoff, and we should anchor ourselves there for a second.
Please.
This strategy directly addresses the two hardest levers in business: pricing power and customer lifetime value.
Precisely. If you're selling a belief system, the customer stops comparing prices. The whole relationship shifts from a cost-benefit analysis to an active participation.
Right.
They'll pay more, they'll stay longer, and maybe most importantly, they become these passionate advocates who go out and recruit others because they feel like they're part of something, a worthy tribe.
And that's how lifetime value just explodes.
That's it.
So our deep dive today is structured around those four essential principles that really unlock this non-transactional value. We're going to try to move past the surface level stuff, the logos and slogans.
All the polish.
Yeah, all the polish, and look at the actual structural changes you need to build a brand that people genuinely care about.
Let's start at the very top then, with the concept that really reshapes the whole strategy.
Principle 1. Brands must stand for something beyond profit. The consensus in the material is crystal clear on this. Profit has to be the result, not the purpose.
That is such a subtle distinction, but it dictates everything that follows.
It really does.
When customers sense, and they always do, that the only motivation is their money, they create distance, they get wary, they're always looking for the cheaper option. But when they sense you stand for something they believe in, whether it's quality or integrity or dignity, they want to get closer. They want to align themselves with you.
Okay, but let's talk about the risk here, because I think this is where a lot of businesses get nervous. If you stand for something meaningful, doesn't that, by definition, alienate a certain part of the market?
That's a really important nuance, and the experts hit it head on. Yes, you might alienate the people who don't share your values, but you massively deepen the relationship with the segment that does.
So you're trading wide for deep.
Exactly. You're trading broad, shallow, fickle interest for deep, intense, passionate loyalty. You're building a tribe of advocates who will defend you, not just a pool of indifferent shoppers.
And you see this proved out in all the famous examples from the sources. When you buy from Patagonia, you're not just buying a jacket.
No, you're funding their mission.
You're actively supporting their mission for environmental protection. Same with Warby Parker. You're supporting accessible eyewear. The purchase itself becomes an affirmation of who the customer is.
That distinction, the purchase's affirmation,
Right.
is why the coffee shop example they use works so perfectly as a contrast. So imagine a coffee shop. Their purpose is, we sell great coffee. It's generic, it's interchangeable. They're competing on price, convenience, taste, all things that require constant, exhausting effort just to keep up.
Now, contrast that with the shop that says, we believe coffee farmers deserve dignity and fair pay. We personally verify every farm. We pay 3 times the standard fair trade minimum. Our coffee is more expensive because people matter more than our margins.
Suddenly, price is not the main concern anymore.
Not at all.
Customers who share that belief, they're not just buying caffeine. They're participating in a mission. They will gladly pay $6 for that cup, not because the coffee is geometrically better, but because they are agreeing with the brand's belief system.
That $6 transaction is an expression of their own values.
Exactly.
And the strategic takeaway here for you running a smaller business is so critical. You can't out-advertise the big corporations, but the source material is adamant. You can out-mean them.
You can stand for more.
Businesses that plant their flag on a deeply held belief create these tribes that are just immune to price switching. They've bypassed the whole transactional model.
But defining that purpose is step one. It's totally useless if it just stays on a piece of paper. And that brings us to the foundation for turning that purpose into actual scalable value.
That's right. Because if principle 1 is about belief, then principle 2 is all about delivery. And it is non-negotiable. Consistency builds trust, and trust builds brands.
Brand strength, according to all the experts, comes from ruthless consistency, not perfection.
Ruthless consistency. I like that.
And this applies to every single point of contact. Your quality, your communication style, your response time, your stated values. The sources are so clear that inconsistency is the absolute fastest way to destroy trust.
And we should dig into why it's so lethal. It's because it increases the cognitive load for the customer.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if your quality fluctuates or your support is great one day and terrible the next, the customer has to constantly stop and wonder, was that good experience just a fluke? Can I rely on them next time? Do I need a backup plan?
Exactly. When you introduce doubt, you force the customer to reevaluate the buying decision every single time. That's friction. Consistency eliminates that friction. It creates certainty, and that certainty compounds into brand equity.
Right.
It's the operational requirement for premium pricing. The customer thinks, I know what I'm getting, and it's worth the extra money because the alternative is just uncertainty.
Let's apply this to that online course business example we saw.
Yeah.
The inconsistent company, they rush some courses out, they overpromise on content. Their support response is, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 2 weeks.
A student might get a decent course once, but they'll be hesitant to buy another one. They just don't know what they're going to get.
Yeah.
Trust hasn't been built, so that lifetime value just stalls out after one transaction.
But the consistent business, they invest heavily in standardized processes. Every course has the same rigorous structure. Support is always under 24 hours. It's a system, not just a mood. The consistent quality is the brand promise.
And that is how you turn a customer into a multi-course buyer and a true advocate. They don't just trust the product they bought, they trust the system behind it.
So they can confidently tell a friend, this company never met us.
Right. Reliability, the sources say, always wins over unpredictability. If your quality depends on whether you had a busy week, you're signaling to the market that you're unreliable. And you won't get 10 chances to fix that first bad impression.
Okay, so we have the why, the purpose. We have the how of delivery consistency. Now we need the vehicle to communicate that value. And that brings us to principle 3. Brands are built through stories, not slogans.
This is such a universal human truth. Our brains are wired for narrative. We connect instantly with stories about origin, vulnerability, customer journeys, the real why behind the business.
Yeah, slogans like quality you can trust or we strive for excellence.
They're just noise.
Total noise. They're generic, you forget them instantly, and they require a massive ad spend to even register.
And the story, it's the ultimate human advantage.
Yeah.
It humanizes the brand, makes it relatable and real. This is so important, especially for small and mid-sized businesses, because you're not a faceless corporation. You are real people with a real history. You have to leverage that.
If you ignore story, you're left relying on polished, professional, committee-approved messaging.
It's sterile.
Yeah. And the customer might admire the slickness of your website, but they feel absolutely nothing. There's no emotional hook. And without that, there's no compelling reason to choose you over the next slightly cheaper option.
Let's use that leather bag example from the sources. It illustrates this perfectly. The slogan approach is crafted for excellence.
It says something, but it means nothing.
Right. It states a quality, but gives you zero reason to believe it or to pay a premium for it.
Okay, now the story approach.
The story approach shifts the value entirely. The bag isn't just leather, it's an inheritance. It's the story of the founder's grandfather, the old world artisan, the mission to keep 60-year-old traditional tools and techniques alive in a world of mass production.
The company isn't selling a bag.
No, they're selling a connection to tradition, to legacy, to scarcity.
And that's where the price justification comes from. The story lets the customer anchor the value not in the material cost, but in the intangible narrative. When you buy that bag, You're part of preserving a dying craft.
The story becomes part of the product's value. It makes that item irreplaceable.
And the story explains the price.
It is the justification. It builds a bond that makes customers feel like they know you. And, crucially, it gives them something compelling to tell their friends when they're recommending you. It turns a transaction into a testimonial.
Speaking of testimony, that leads us right into the fourth and final principle. And multiple contributors said this is the hardest to do, but the most important for longevity. Your employees are your brand.
This is the ultimate synthesis of everything. The brand isn't your logo or your advertising or even your story. It is every single interaction a customer has with anyone in your company.
And all that work on purpose, consistency, and story can be completely destroyed by one rude customer service rep.
Or one indifferent delivery driver.
Yeah. And most businesses make this fatal mistake of separating branding from operations. They hire an agency to create this beautiful, aspirational marketing promise. That's the branding. But then they completely fail to integrate that promise into the actual delivery and culture. That's operations.
If the people on the front lines, the ones who actually talk to the customer, if they don't believe the purpose, if they aren't trained to deliver the consistency, then the brand is it's just marketing pretending to be something it's not.
And customers see that gap immediately.
Instantly.
Think about the boutique hotel scenario. The website is polished, it's promising personalized luxury, and an authentic local experience. That's the external promise.
But if there's a disconnect, the front desk staff is underpaid, overworked, and just indifferent.
They've checked out mentally.
Exactly. Checkout is rushed and transactional. Guests leave feeling disappointed, not because the sheets were bad, but because the human experience didn't match the website's promise. The marketing becomes a lie, and the trust is broken.
Now, contrast that with an aligned business. The staff is hired not just for competency, but for genuine hospitality. They're empowered to solve problems, to create those small, personalized moments.
The front desk remembers returning guests. Housekeeping leaves a personalized note. The team is the brand. They deliver it.
That cultural alignment means the operations department is keeping the promises the marketing department is making. And that is the only sustainable way to turn customers into passionate advocates.
Yeah, if you pour $1 million into external polish but ignore the internal culture, you're basically paying money to set customer expectations so high that your own staff can't possibly meet them. You have to be ruthlessly consistent inside and out.
All right, so we've covered the 4 pillars of strategic brand thinking: purpose, consistency, story, and employees. Let's make this immediately actionable, something you can apply to your own business today.
The sources suggest a really simple, fast exercise. Get a piece of paper, open a blank document, whatever works, and take 10 minutes to complete this sentence honestly.
Yeah.
Beyond making money, my business exists too.
And if your first answer is something generic like provide quality service, you've got to go deeper.
That's just the ticket to play.
Right. That's a minimum requirement. What's the actual belief system under your work? What's the hill you are willing to die on? Is it accessible design? Uncompromising integrity, the dignity of your supply chain.
And once you have that statement, you have to subject it to 2 clarifying questions. A little self-check.
What are they?
First, would my best, most loyal customer immediately agree this is what we stand for? And second, does this sound like generic marketing BS?
And you have to be honest.
You have to be ruthless.
Baked it.
If you hesitate on either of those questions, the work isn't done.
This shift, from seeing branding as just temporary polish to seeing it as strategic structure, that's the whole ballgame.
Great brands are built from the inside out. Through authentic purpose, ruthlessly consistent delivery, compelling stories that anchor value, and teams who are hired and empowered to live those values every day. This is how you stop competing on price.
And start competing on meaning.
That's it.
And here's the final provocative thought to take with you. Most businesses will continue to treat branding as a temporary surface-level tactic. A new logo, a clever slogan, a social media campaign. But you now understand that strategic brand thinking is permanent. It is the engine that generates sustainable growth, allows you to dictate your own pricing, and creates lasting value that no competitor can just copy.
So the question is?
The question is, are you ready to get honest about what your business truly stands for? Start with that sentence today.